Aunt Bee was everyone's favorite on-screen aunt. She was always seen whipping up tasty dishes, blissfully straightening up the house, or offering sound moral advice to Andy or Opie when they needed it the most. She became the quintessential representation of a kindly Southern woman that only Mayberry could have produced. Aunt Bee became a household name, and viewers no doubt felt like she was a member of their family. The problem is that Aunt Bee is only a fictional character. To Frances Bavier, the actress who played her, being known as Aunt Bee was something of a curse. She had been acting both on the screen and on stage for over 40 years before she landed this iconic role on The Andy Griffith Show. Even years later, when she decided to retire from showbiz, people still associated her with her character. In this video, we'll take a look at Frances Bavier's lifelong struggle with the famed character of Aunt Bee. Be sure to stick around until the end of the video to see how this character impacted her career and eventually led her to bid farewell to acting altogether. Facts Verse presents Why Aunt Bee Said No to Return to Mayberry. If you're a fan of Mayberry's Aunt Bee, show us by clicking the like button. And be sure to subscribe to the channel and click the notification bell to see more videos like this. Living up to the role proved to be difficult. When the world associates you with a character you play on TV, it's hard to strip the persona and be seen as your own person. Frances Bavier expressed immense frustration in living up to the role that she played on screen. Aunt Bee seemed to always know just what to say and to do to remedy a sticky situation. She was a sage-like character that always had a nugget of ethical wisdom or moral philosophy when Andy, Opie, or Gomer were really going through it. On screen, you hardly ever saw Aunt Bee get short with anyone. She held her temper and turned the other cheek, even when the world had something nasty to say. In an interview with the Star-Gazette of Elmira, New York in 1966, she expressed how difficult it was to live up to a character that was always so nice. She explained, "Unlike plays in which you play a character only a couple hours each night, you must be a television character 12 hours a day. Even when you go home, people don't recognize you as you, but for the character you play. It can be awfully confusing." She felt typecasted. In another telling interview with the Charlotte News, she explained she felt like she was doomed to always be sweet old Aunt Bee. She said every now and then she would get a hankering to play a really bad woman. She went on to reference an episode of The Lone Ranger entitled Sawtell's Saga Ends, where she played the seemingly law-abiding citizen, Aunt Maggie Sawtell. On the surface, that character seemed sweet and innocent, but in reality, she was the criminal mastermind behind her two sons' nefarious crime sprees. She loved playing this devious role, but her fans did not. Her mailbox was flooded with complaints filled with outrage that she would dare play such a sinister role. She felt further marginalized after this episode and started to experience a loss of identity. People knew her as sweet as Southern tea, Aunt Bee. How could she ever escape this persona? If not Aunt Bee, then who is Frances Bavier? Born on December 14, 1902 in New York City, she grew up with aspirations of becoming a schoolteacher. She enrolled at Columbia University to pursue this dream. But despite her best efforts, that didn't really work out. "I was bad there," she said to the Charlotte News. "Very bad." This disappointment frightened her, and she decided to pursue her backup plan, acting. She enrolled at the American Academy of Dramatic Arts in Manhattan. She landed her first job in theater doing a vaudeville skit with William Cameron. She was only an understudy at the time, but when the lead actress spontaneously announced her pregnancy, it was Frances Bavier that stepped in and took on the role in her absence. Her next role in the play Higher and Higher was also landed as a last-minute substitution when she was working as an understudy. After that additional stroke of luck, she went on to follow Dorothy Stickney in the Broadway performance of On Borrowed Time, where she not only finished up the entire run, but also went on to reprise her role in subsequent Chicago performances. She counted her time on stage as a blessing for her career. Having to go on stage and give the best performance you can each and every show teaches you a tremendous amount of willpower. It requires you to tap into a special sort of energy that pushes through any fear, fright, hesitation, or discomfort to give the audience what they deserve. Was she ever married? There seem to be some discrepancies in history as to whether or not Frances ever married during these formative years of her acting career. There's some indication that she may have tied the knot with a certain military man named Russell Carpenter in the late 1920s. This retelling of history seems to be confirmed by her own testimony. In that same interview with the Star-Gazette, she said she had indeed married a man but struggled with the fact that he was not a professional. He simply didn't understand her life as an actress as much as he tried to be supportive. She tried to be both wife and actress, but found the balancing act to be very impractical, with the attempt having a troubling effect on their marriage. She went on to say quite bluntly, "It's not that I loved him less, but I loved acting more." Frances went on in that same interview to acknowledge that women were perfectly capable of both having a career and a home life, but she had a certain empathy for the man that wanted his wife to be solely devoted to him and the household. She continued to express how she felt a woman's role was to serve her husband, and although economic factors may sometimes require a woman to seek employment, she felt that she might be unable to satisfy the desires of a husband as a career woman. Her career in film began to unfold. Although Frances would find herself eventually on the television screen, she got her start in film with an uncredited role in the 1931 film Girls About Town as the character Joy, followed by the role of Mrs. Asbury in 1943's Oh My Darling Clementine. Up next, she would land the role of Mrs. Barley in the iconic science fiction classic The Day the Earth Stood Still, which saw its widespread release to great acclaim in 1951. It was around this time she began to be typecasted as a conservative, motherly persona, much to her disdain. She starred in over a dozen theatrical film roles in total, with one of her biggest roles being Mrs. Tapp in the 1959 romantic classic It Started with a Kiss. Television beckoned. Many stars of the big screen quickly find themselves drawn to the small screen. This pattern didn't exclude Frances, who landed a role in an episode of 1952's Racket Squad, a show that found everyday characters getting wrapped up in a different confidence scheme. She quickly went on to play guest starring roles in the shows Dragnet and The Lone Ranger. Remember that mischievous, unexpected criminal mastermind that she recalled immensely enjoying playing? Well, she wouldn't always have such exciting roles, because she found herself returning to the old familiar role of a motherly type when she starred as a boarding house director in 1954's It's a Great Life. The series starred a young James Dunn with Michael O'Shea and William Bishop as supporting cast. This particular role foreshadowed what she would become in her future, despite her desires for more diverse acting opportunities. Not exactly the Aunt Bee we came to know and love. Author Richard Kelly published a book in 2017 titled The Andy Griffith Show Book that gave readers an intimate, behind-the-scenes look at what was going on with the cast and crew of the show behind the cameras. The book describes Frances Bavier as being rather reserved and always presented herself in a highly professional manner. She was an articulate comedian and a disciplined actress with a very defined character. She was nothing like the whimsical shenanigans that became such a commonplace theme of the show. Frances had a certain sensitivity about her that required patience and cautious empathy so as not to upset her. She was quick on the offense and sometimes bucked heads with cast and crew. She demanded respect as a strong, empowered woman who knew her worth. You dared not curse in front of her without her setting you in your place. She could be a bit temperamental at times and occasionally would go off on someone that would rub her the wrong way. Cast and crew found they had to be particularly courteous and aware when dealing with her, which was in stark contrast with the otherwise light-hearted crew. Frances Bavier was well known to have a short fuse. Eve Arden worked with Frances on The Eve Arden Show. Frances Bavier played her mother despite only being 6 years her senior. She was described as being exceptionally hard to work with on that show, as she was likely to blow up and make a scene. Frances had confidence and a lot of self-worth. This proved to be her strength and her weakness, as it maintained her sense of self-identity, but also alienated her at times from her castmates. Some of this had to do with some miscommunication about who Aunt Bee would be in relation to the show. In the pilot episode, she was a driving force. She was a focal point for which the rest of the characters and situations would revolve around. Frances enjoyed being in the limelight and the center of attention, so as the show progressed and she became less of the starring role, she felt somewhat slighted. Her relationship with Andy would take on a sour note because of this. She felt trapped by the Andy Griffith Show. During interviews at the time of the show's airing, she often expressed that she wasn't quite enjoying herself. She had the spirit for adventure. Frances wanted to explore the world and see what it had to offer, but she found herself trapped in the show and typecast as this homebody, cordial woman. So when the show finally came to an end in 1968, she felt liberated. She quickly retired from television and settled in Siler City, North Carolina, where she lived a quiet, reclusive life in an attempt to shed her on-screen persona. When producers approached her to see if she would join the rest of the cast for a reunion film titled Return to Mayberry, she abruptly declined. It had been almost 20 years since she was Aunt Bee. She felt they needed to leave her character in the past. When the film finally was released, she was written out as having died of old age. There's even a scene where Andy and Opie visit her grave to bid her farewell. The fact is, Frances Bavier experienced incredible turmoil for years after playing the role of Aunt Bee. It was all people could see from her. She was no longer able to pursue acting, her life's passion, because of her previous role. She always blamed the Andy Griffith Show for this, and her health suffered as a result. She began psychological counseling to move past it, but was never able to fully heal. This led her to develop a reclusive lifestyle, giving up acting forever. We hope you enjoyed this in-depth look at the woman behind Aunt Bee. While her iconic role troubled her for many years, we're still grateful we have such a beloved character to remember her by. Now we'd like to hear from you. Do you think Aunt Bee was Frances's best role, or do you prefer one of her other performances? Let us know in the comments. And if you enjoyed this video, please subscribe for more videos like this from Factsverse.